just steel and gears. It pulls you in and doesn't let go.
Hello. Isaac here, back again today on my own to talk about the LA riots, which are raging outside my window in Pasadena as we speak. No, just kidding. It's completely calm and quiet. I have not seen a single thing. Did see yesterday, I drove by and there was like, ICE spotted in LA or in Pasadena near my house by some people the people posting it were people who like do false flags and they start protests. And I showed up there and immediately I could sense that it was like a prop up protest. It's not like these were Mexicans down on their luck, working class Mexicans who had gotten out of their house because something horrible had happened and were just taking their fury to the streets. It was mostly gray-haired, sort of academic type women, like, in this house we believe lawn sign type of women, liberal women, just kind of holding signs and yelling. It was only about a half block of people, and there was like 3 tents for musicians already set up. So that kind of tells you like the character of these protests, at least the one that I saw. I talked to a couple friends who saw the downtown ones earlier in the week or over the weekend, and they said the downtown ones were pretty intense. But the real question is, what is happening here? Why is this occurring? And what's really the meaning of all these images we're seeing? Because really, these protests, at least since the 1960s, have been a battle of images. That's really the point here. I'd like to read 2 quotes from Saul Alinsky that describe this situation very well. And one of them is, "The real action is the enemy's reaction." And what he means by that is that when you're engaging in these tactics and these organization tactics, which the modern left is deeply entrenched in, all the modern left has been doing these tactics for many years. The point is not the people on the street. The point is how people react to the images of people on the street. So you have to think the goal of these actions. It's not really disruption. I mean, that's part of it. It's actually imagery. The goal is imagery, right? That's one. The second one is tactics. When he says tactics, he means the actions that a organized political movement takes. So protests, boycotts, letter writing campaigns, sit-ins, these are all tactics. And so he says in the second quote, "Tactics must be employed as weapons for the purpose of establishing a scenario or impression." So what he means there is that, the real currency of these protests is the images that come out of them. And these are weapons, and the weapons are designed to establish an impression or scenario. By the way, who is Saul Alinsky? Saul Alinsky is a guy who wrote a book called Rules for Radicals, which is the playbook used by the Obama branch of the Dems. This is not controversial. This isn't some like conspiracy. And it's just a guide to modern activism. And it's it's meant for left-wing people, but modern day right-wing people use it as well, because it's all about this like battle of images. It's all about this side has this imagery, that side has that imagery. And this influences the perceptions of the voter. And that's kind of the idea. So again, it's, according to Alinsky, these are like his 2 most famous quotes. The real action is the enemy's reaction. Number 2, tactics must be employed as weapons for the purpose of establishing a scenario or an impression. What he's saying is, to reiterate, the the aggression in these protests is not really the point. The point is to sway perception by use of imagery. And so that makes us ask, this imagery that is coming out of LA, the main image that people tend to be sharing is this one that I'm about to share with you. And here we have a guy standing on a destroyed Jaguar Waymo car. Oh, I love these Waymo cars, by the way. I've took a bunch of them in Phoenix. They're fantastic. It's really, there's something weirdly refreshing about being in a Waymo without a driver. It's like Uber without a driver. In any case, whoever organized this tactic, one of the things that they did was call a bunch of these Waymos that don't have drivers into wherever they were staging this protest. And again, these protests were staged in different places in LA. One of them was Pasadena. I just told you what that one looked like. There was a couple others staged in other places. Now, how are they staged? When you see these protests happen, and I'll share something in a second, pamphlets, materials, posts, plans, flyers go out to people that are interested in whatever political flavor of leftism they happen to be activating in that day, whether it's Gaza, whether it's Black Lives Matter. All of these things are basically email listservs, and you receive directives in how to gather. That's just how these things happen. It's not like suddenly everybody, something happens and then they just agree to meet on a certain street corner. Nothing even happened in this protest. This is a pre-planned protest. This is how these things happen. I'll show you in a second the actual mechanics of it because there's a great thread on it. But so people have evidently gathered somewhere, and then we have this guy standing on a destroyed Waymo Jaguar car waving a Mexican flag. And so what everybody on the right is doing is sharing this photo and using it as a fear tactic of their own, right? Again, it's a battle of images. But what they're doing is they're using it to communicate to their audience on the right fear. They're saying, look at this guy. He is waving a foreign flag. He's on a destroyed piece of property. He's scary looking. He's literally wearing a skull mask. And he's an invader. This guy's an invader. He has invaded America. And here he is waving a Mexican flag. And it's like, okay, this is supposed to terrify the normal person. And I understand why they think that that's happening. But here is what I see. When I see this image, I don't see an actual warrior invading a country. I don't see that. What I see is an Olinsky, very obviously curated and styled photo shoot. Now, if you look a little more closely at this photo, look at this guy. First of all, his flag is brand new. So he's got this Mexican flag that's clearly fresh out of the box because it's sort of like crinkled in this way that shows you that he just pulled it right out of the box, right? So already it's like, okay, well, it's not, I'm sure they have a bunch of the new flags hanging around, but it's not like this guy is some authentic Mexican who's down on his luck and, he's just, if only. Second, look at this guy's outfit and look at his whole thing. He's 0% body fat. He looks like a model. He's perfectly staged without anybody else around him. This is not an action shot. He's got a perfect haircut, a perfect mask. He's got a chain that perfectly shows under his hair. His pants, he's got misfit skulls and stuff on his perfectly sort of placed pants with a perfectly laced metal belt that are placed in such a way that look like a fashion shoot. This guy looks like an Instagram fashion shoot. This is like a not naturally occurring photo. This is a photo opportunity, right? So when we're seeing this, that makes me immediately think, well, wait a second. The right thinks this is like a warrior who's destroyed their city. This is a model. And the question is, who is shooting this model? Is the right shooting this model or is the left shooting this model? And if the left is shooting this model, that should make people on the right think, well, wait a second, do we want to be sharing the propaganda materials of our enemies? And the answer to that should always be no. Because there's a great rule from L. Ron Hubbard: never run an enemy's campaign on your own lines, which means never take a piece of propaganda created by your enemy and run it on your own, in your own networks. You do your own frame, your own propaganda, not theirs. Because this, why would they do this? So again, like, if you just more proof that this is obviously, you know, a photo shoot. Look at this video. Here's an actual video of the photo shoot occurring. So look at this. Here we have this guy. Look, there's not even any protests happening around this guy. It looks like a set. This guy looks like there's nobody even around him for like 100 meters or maybe 100 feet, maybe more than 100 feet, besides a ring of photographers. There's a ring of photographers as this guy is standing on this thing, posing with this flag in his perfect outfit. So how did this come to be? Did this come to be authentically? Obviously not. This is obviously staged. This is a staged photo opportunity. There's things burning in the background. You know, oh, it's supposed to look like this thing. You can always tell because they always have this staged flavor. You know, as somebody who makes commercials and does shoots, it's very, very difficult to get a certain quality of a photo that looks this way. So, you know, when you make things like this has to be produced. It's not just like this happened. Like, look, this is like a 15-minute thing where he's just standing on here doing a photo op. So the only question really to analyze this is who is doing this? Who is doing this and why? My guess is that what happened here is that the left, who has been having a very difficult time getting its activist networks together and to get them to do things since October 7th, because there's a rift between them, which I'll talk about that in a second to show more proof of how these things actually work, how these protests work. Now, what I would guess happened here is that this is a action from the left-wing activist patronage networks, which are very well funded. And by the way, when I say very well funded, you'll see, I don't mean that these are paid protesters. Paid protesters do happen. You know, you can see somebody posted a great one the other day of a guy on fentanyl holding like a no ice sign in the protest. And that's like, okay, well, that guy's obviously paid if he's on fentanyl, having like a fentanyl lean, you know, in the middle of the protest he supposedly cares about. So look, the paid stuff does happen. You've seen it. There's proof of it in many places. These people, again, it's not paid protesters. It is a network of interested people who are being sparked by paid patronage networks. So it's like when you're doing an influencer campaign or something and you're asking people to like and share, and you know the brand gets paid, the talent gets paid, but all the underlying people, they don't really get paid, but they want to participate in this thing that they're naturally interested in, right? So this sounds kind of subtle, but I think a lot of people think, and the mind of the normie thinks, oh, when they see these images, on the right too, they think, oh, the furious masses have risen up and are not taking it anymore, right? And that's just not how these things are anymore. It used to be like that, like the 92 or the 92, whatever it is, whenever Rodney King was, I can't even remember. Whenever that was, those were real. That was like really fury. That was an inciting incident. Yeah, sure. Did the patronage networks help back then? I'm sure they did. But that was people really pissed. That was actual protest, right? That was an actual protest. This was like a color revolution thing. Then you can tell because there was no incident. There was no video. There was no thing. It just suddenly, bam, they're protesting, right? And that's because these things are planned long in advance by networks of people who thrive on creating these actions and these tactics. And that's what these are. So let me just show, so you don't think I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. Here is a great thread from Tablet Magazine that was from an article by a fantastic writer named Park McDougald, fantastic young guy who does these things. And he basically tracked for Tablet Magazine the money behind the Gaza protests. And one of the most striking things I remember, I think about this every day. One of the guys who was caught in the Gaza protesting in NYU was a Mischling Jewish guy, or maybe dad or mom, who knows, who was very pro-Palestine. He was 40 years old, and he was caught, and it turned out he was a multimillionaire heir to an advertising fortune in Brooklyn, in a $3.5 million brownstone. And there was a hilarious interaction he had with somebody that he was giving a couch to, and he figured out the person he was giving the couch to was a Zionist, and he said, "You're not getting my couch. My people are being killed in Palestine." And it's like, he's Jewish. So it's like the level of delusion that people can have about these issues is insane. And why do they have this level of delusion? Because they don't have religion in their lives. This guy, the Torah is actually all about this. It's idol worship. And there's no more fervent believer than an idol worshiper, right? Because they can sense there's something wrong, and they're trying to find this easy solution. So in any case, much of the Gaza protests were people like that, these kind of rich people, religion, godless, rich people kind of thing. But Park McDougall did this fantastic deep dive into how these protest networks activate and who's funding them. So I'm just going to read a couple of the tweets from this. It's called "The People Setting America on Fire. How are all anti-Israel protests alike? We followed the money to find out." So in Georgia in 2023, prosecutors brought RICO charges against anarchists involved in the Stop Cop City protests in Atlanta. The indictment identified a network of fraudulent nonprofits, fiscal sponsors, and bail funds that were, in reality, front groups controlled by 3 anarchist roommates who used millions in tax-exempt funds on an alleged violent criminal conspiracy involving the illegal occupation of public land, planned confrontations with police, doxing, and harassment campaigns. So basically what he's trying to say here is, in Atlanta, somebody arrested some of the people involved in one of these bullshit protests and found out that this is their job. This is what we mean by patronage networks. They're not just like people sitting around like, "Oh, I'm angry. I'm coming out on the streets. I'm organizing this for my friend." This is a professional job. These guys are professional protesters. And that's what they do. They launder money. It's kind of criminal. They're basically criminals. Where did the money come from to fund these criminals that were organizing these supposedly authentic protests? From donations solicited through left-wing fundraising and organizing networks. And from my long experience dealing with very creepy organizations, you can always tell the more generic the name of an organization is, the creepier it is. So one of those networks was the Climate Justice Alliance. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with BLM Cop City? Obviously nothing, but again, it's all one network. An umbrella group for more than 80 community organizations, including the grassroots Global Justice Alliance, which organized an illegal anti-Israel protest in the Capitol Rotunda in December, at which more than 50 activists were arrested. CJA's website promotes a grab bag of far-left causes and includes a Free Palestine page, proclaiming that the path to climate justice travels through a free Palestine. Now, look, I'm not here as a crypto Jewish Zionist trying to convince you that Gaza is the same as immigration and that all these people are your enemies. I am not saying that. What I'm saying is Gaza is one part of the tentacle network, right? Israel probably used to be, Zionism probably still is in some ways, another tentacle of this network, weirdly, right? But now Gaza has become the kind of stylish one because, again, these people have no religion. So they're attracted. They need the fix of constantly finding the new oppressed group to feel good about saving, right? That's their religion, is basically that. And so Gaza has become the thing for them, because for obvious reasons. It's a great one because it's like, oh, you can't talk about it, and it really is bad, right? It's horrible what's happening there. I'm not insensitive to what's happening in Gaza, So anyway, this is beyond the point. I just want you guys to not know that this isn't like some elaborate Israel show. This is just very good work that was done about this through the lens of Gaza. Okay, so what you learn is there's the CJA. So this is one arm of it. And then when you track up further and further and back from CJA and further from the things on the ground, you start to see that this money pot integrates with well-known NGOs, like ones that fund even right-wing causes. Like you see the Tides Foundation in here. Remember when that account, I forgot what it was called. It was like USAID Watch or something. It showed where the USAID funds went, but it was kind of misleading. The nice thing about that is that it shows that this NGO complex is just one giant patronage network, right? And so when somebody is inside that patronage network, it kind of does mean that they're part of the regime at some level. Now, again, I don't begrudge everybody who's ever taken NGO money. If some NGO came, and this has never happened, but if some NGO came to me and was like, hey, let's do a branding campaign for here's $10 million, I would fucking do it in a second. So I'm not pretending I'm like the pure man here. I'm a branding guy. So, but it still is true that Tides Foundation, these huge NGO things, they give to all these organizations, and all the money bleeds into making these protests happen, and to playing this Alinsky game of manufacturing photos, of manufacturing photography. So let's just keep reading a couple more of these. So and again, it's Russian dolls. So the networks are so dense and the money's shifting around. And again, people are going to say, oh, you're saying that's paid protesting? These people are paid? No, they're just immigrants who care, about their families being deported. And it's like, no, I'm not saying they're paid protesters. I'm saying that it's color revolution shit. It's color revolution shit in the United States of America. It is organization by paid people who have political interests using the lower level groups and actual individuals who are, semi-interested in showing up at this protest or that protest. And, what you can say to that is, okay, well, isn't that just how politics works? Yes, it is. Yes, it is how politics works. And it is how politics has worked. But my only point here is these photos that you're seeing, if you know that this is all a patronage network of people who are some interested for money, some interested for real, whatever. If you know that the images are the point of the production, you have to analyze the images. And in my opinion, you have to toss out any image that is made by the people on the other side. You should never share an image made from the other side on your thing, even if it's to say this is dangerous and scary. Because, well, I'll get back to it, and I'll get back to analyzing it in 1 second. But let me just read a couple more of these. So CJA, Climate Justice Whatever, is a subsidiary of the Movement Strategy Center, a California-based 501c3 that has received funding from the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Tides Foundation, and various branches of the Open Society Network. So Ford, Rockefeller, Tides, Soros, Open Society. Why do they exist? They exist to fund protests, not even really to annoy people, more to get the imagery. Because again, Alinsky rule number 1, the point is not the action, it is the reaction. And to garner the reaction, you get the images. That was rule number 2. Okay, but as another financial supporter, okay, he's saying that basically the taxpayers also pay into these NGOs, which is, what a fucking surprise. So, the one key, I've also been to a lot of these protests, and one of the key things that you notice is they're always structured in the same way and they have the same materials. So people are always like, why are all the tents at all these protests in different places about different topics? Why is it always the same tents? And that's because it's the same network of people. And this network of people receives things like this. Here's a how to do it block tactics poster. And people receive this in text. It's a very sneaky, scary, cool thing. Oh, you're learning how to take action in public. And people are bored. And they receive these pamphlets. They receive a guide of what to buy. Oh, here's a tent that you can buy. Here's a, this or that you can buy. And it just becomes why it's always, here we go. There is no one decision maker. Rather, decentralized affinity groups work towards a shared goal, coordinating out in the open via social media and Google Docs. Like, it's not a secret. They can create an impression of centralized planning. Matching tents that have cropped up at a number of campuses, prompting speculation that some shadowy entity is buying them en masse. This is also like, how come every protest has one of these burning cars in the center of it, right? How come the bricks, suddenly there's bricks on campus that show up, a pallet of bricks. This is because these are very systematized and coordinated, right? They're very coordinated. After October 7th, though, a lot of this was revealed because, again, Tablet, a Jewish magazine, was like, well, fuck that. We're not down playing this game when you're doing it for Gaza, so we're going to reveal all this shit, which is exactly what's happened. So I feel like what's happening in LA is the first time since October 7th when these networks really fell apart because they couldn't agree on Gaza. This thing in LA right now is the first time they've been able to activate their networks in a way that feels a little sticky. To me, I still think it's fake, or not fake, but just I don't think there's enough organic interest to make it real. But in any case, matching tents have cropped up in a number of campuses, prompting speculation that some shadowy entity is buying them en masse. People keep pointing out they all have the same tent, says some guy. Well, yeah, it's because the organizers told them to buy a tent and sent around a Google Doc with a link to that specific tent. So they all went out and bought the same tent. So again, it's like, it seems like we're making some big conspiratorial point, but we're actually saying the simplest thing in the world, which is basically that these protests are not organic. They are organized by paid patronage network members whose entire job it is to create an economy and to create these things and to create them for the purposes of political capital. And that's what Alinsky's whole thing is, right? Okay, so to return to these particular protests. So here's more that people are sharing. People are also sharing these. Oh, the aesthetics are so good. Here's like a badass guy driving a motorbike, waving a Mexican flag, also in a killer skeleton mask. And then here's a pretty woman. Oh, look, another brand new flag, straight out of the box. So the reason why these images look good is on purpose. Now, a normal person, what everybody's giving me shit about is, well, this is insane. A normal human being is never going to believe that a person waving a foreign national flag in their country is not a threat. It's not a terrifying invader. And what I would argue here is that there are two sets of eyes seeing two different things. I do think that people are correct that the flag was a step too far. And there's really good evidence for that because somebody else, I can't find it right now, but somebody else posted one of these communiques from the patronage networks to the activists saying like, hey guys, get out there. But oh, by the way, don't wave the Mexican flag. So I think what happened with this Mexican flag, it was a little bit of a mistake. I think they were like, well, get out there and be a Mexican and show that this is your country too, and blah, blah, blah. But then they gave them Mexican flags. But I think that was a little bit of a misplay. Or who knows, maybe it was a really propagandistic opportunity taken by the right. Also, maybe they put the Mexican flags out there and like, hey, go wave this around, right? This is how the propaganda game kind of goes. So maybe that's what it is, to show that these are invaders, right? And I think it makes them look like invaders. If it was a Black Lives Matter flag, if it was an Aztec flag, if it was some other kind of Mexican thing, it would be fine. But since it's a foreign country and they're, saying we don't want to go back to our foreign country, even though we're in a different foreign country, what they're really saying is this is our, we're taking over. That should scare normal everyday people. And I agree with that. I certainly agree with that. But on the other side, what the people taking these photos, these photo ops are aiming for, again, if you believe that they're actually created by the left at all, is there is two kind of end games. If you read Alinsky or if you read Bernays, any of these guys, there's kind of two end games to the type of photo warfare you want. One type is the much more obvious one, and it's kind of, you sort of have to do the balance between these things. One type is the side of it that's victimhood, right? So this is Rosa Parks, who was an activist. Rosa Parks was a total activist, totally non-authentic. She was an ACLU or whatever activist her whole career. So that whole thing was, again, one of these images. But we have in our minds this image of a woman organically just getting on the bus and some white guy's like, get the hell out of here. And so that's the image that comes in people's heads, right? The black people being hit with a spray thing. George Floyd's biggest example of this, because that confirmed in people's minds, the white man is killing the black man. He can't get off his neck. So that's one type. That was a victory of an image, was George Floyd. So that's why they're trying to make this happen again. That's one bucket. The other bucket, however, is the freedom fighter bucket. And this is the Star Wars bucket. This is the Rebel Army bucket. This is the little girl versus the Wall Street bull thing, which is not a victim. It's not people being victimized. Remember, I always think back during George Floyd, there was this completely fake picture of this black woman in a billowy dress, like standing directly to a long line of cops with their guns. And like, it was the perfect photo because it's like, oh, you have fascism on one side. And Americans, we really have ingrained in us this desire to be the rebel army. It's from the beginning of America. We've been the rebel army. So we really, really balk at the image of the fascistic police force against the brave freedom fighter, right? So with that in mind, there's a couple ways to see this thing. And now that I'm actually looking at it a little more closely, I'm sort of having another thought about what might be happening here. So there's two ways to interpret this. One way is these images, like this one and the other one that I just showed, were created by the left for the purpose of freedom fighter vibes, right? This is a freedom fighter vibe. He's sexy. He's got no body fat. He's got a cool outfit on. Hey, you like the Misfits? Look, he's got the Misfits jeans on. He's got a skull thing, but it's like, all right, well, Mexicans are kind of into skulls anyway. Like maybe it's just like a Mexico thing. And, he's got a chain and it's kind of this perfect thing, right? And then this other guy, look at him. He is also, all these guys, this flag looks actually a little more authentic, but the other one is, all these things are brand new out of the box. This guy is, he's on a motorcycle and he's waving the flag, and look, he looks like a badass. He looks like a freedom fighter. Look at his motorbike. It even kind of looks like a rebel, like in the Rebel Army and Star Wars, like their crafts are always like a little bit fucked up. Like their crafts are always like a little janky, whereas the other side, it's like perfect and sleek. It's like Mighty Ducks, right? We all fucking love Mighty Ducks. We love the underdog. And then, here's the police in the background. And he's like, I'm just a ragtag guy. Look, I've got a broomstick handle and I'm, fuck the police, right? I mean, there's a reason why NWA took over the world. Fuck the police. That was their fucking song. Everybody on earth, not everybody, but many, many, many people on earth relate to that message. They really, really do. Now, so that's one way to interpret this, in which case my argument is absolutely do not share these things because it looks cool. You're making this look cool. You're making it look really fucking cool and badass to go out there and protest against the police. It's hot. It's sexy. It's blah, blah. So you would never, in my opinion, you should never share something like this because it's like, that's all it's doing. Now, on the other hand, what could be happening here instead is maybe the right is staging these. So one of the things you always notice from those ISIS videos is that some of them were so well produced, you couldn't tell if one side was producing them or the other side was producing them. Like you were like, is this the ISIS producing this, or is this somebody trying to make ISIS seem evil producing it? Because it's such good quality. Maybe that's what's happening here. This could be a counter propaganda initiative from the other side, trying to create images of really, really scary people, coming into the country. Now, if I had on balance to say which one is going to win this, obviously the left. because these images are sexy and they're cool and they look awesome. And these guys look, interesting and kind of beautiful and Rebel Army-ish, right? So my guess is that it's created by the other side. My guess is that, I mean, you saw all those photographers taking this. Look at all these photographers. There's like 40 photographers around the guy with the zero body fat. So who do those people work for? Is this some, 4D chess by the right? Maybe, but it's not good 4D chess because you're making these people look too cool. You got to make them look ugly. You got to make them look fucking gross. You got to make them look actually scary, not scary on TV. And so that's what tells me that this is actually made by the left. Now, I'll finish up here by saying, what do you do instead? One, you don't share this shit. You share the photos of the gross, fat weirdos. Why did Trump win? Trump won because the blue hairs are disgusting. Nobody wants to be a fucking blue hair man. No girl on earth. Women are very sensitive to this shit. They do not want to be one of those fat blue-haired lesbians because it's disgusting. So that's why we won, man. We won because the left did too much of that. And we saw how really disgusting they were. And nobody really wants to do that. So first of all, don't share these beautiful images of beautiful warriors. You never share a war image of a beautiful warrior from the other side. Every single image first of all, never share their images at all. But if you are going to share their images, share ones of when they look not, again, it's a fine line, not when they look like a victim, but when they look just gross. Like when they look pathetic, not like them being beaten up necessarily, unless they look really gross. Unless it's a blue hair shrieking, Everybody relates to that. Everybody relates to not wanting one of those blue hairs to shriek in their face. So what I wanted to share is an example that I have seen from life, which is this photo. So this photo is a fantastic photo. And what's really interesting, what we're seeing here is one of the members of the Magic, the team, the Orlando Magic, I think his name is John Isaacs, standing while every other player is kneeling. And what's amazing about this photo, to return to some of our prior points, is he looks fucking awesome. The guy standing looks like the freedom fighter. He looks like the guy who is sexy. He looks like the guy everybody wants to be. Nobody wants to be one of these kneeling people in the identical shirts, right? This is what Americans don't like. They don't like conformity. Nobody really likes conformity. Nobody wants to be the kneeling mass. Fine. Maybe Muslims want to be, yeah. Okay, that's a ridiculous statement. I understand. I'm just saying maybe some people do get pleasure in being one of the kneeling masses. But your general, everyday, average person, when they look at this picture of everybody kneeling besides, and some people with masks on, and then you got one guy with the balls to stand, we fucking love that, man. We love that guy. We're like, man, fuck yeah. We all love 12 Angry Men. We all love Cool Hand Luke. We love the Rebel. People fucking love Rebels. So try to Google this picture. Go right now and try to Google NBA player standing while others kneel. It's very hard to find. Google George Floyd protest standing while others kneel. There's actually a few of these. There's a football one. There's a few other really cool ones of one guy standing while a whole team in masks kneels, but they hide him. It's very hard to find these photos because the liberals, the regime liberals, are all Alinskyites. They're all trained in this game. This is what they do all day. This is what they think about. They think about the images at the end of these roads. And there's a reason why we don't see these photos printed. There's a reason why this photo was never printed on the front of any newspaper, because this paints the right as what they actually are, which is the real rebels, right? This paints the right as the real rebels, which is in reality, obviously, given what happened during COVID and George Floyd, if you were right wing, who was the rebel if you were on an NBA team? Obviously the Christian guy, right? So these are the type of images we should try to find. So, look, I'll say to the White House, JD, what's up, man? I love you. But if you guys are behind this, trying to post these photos on the other side, don't do the ones of the sexy people. Do the ones of the gross people and of the kind of pathetic masses being massy and gross, Find images of a single guy on our side standing up to the crowd. There's a great that guy, the guy who does All Gas No Brakes, Andrew Callahan. He has a movie out called Dear Kelly, and it begins with a Antifa. Sorry, so it's supposed to be like a racist protest in Manhattan or in Huntington Beach, which is sort of known as a vaguely right-wing area, even though it's really not. But and Andrew Callahan does a fantastic job setting this scene. It's a really great part of this movie, and it's called Dear Kelly. And so what happens is Andrew Callahan's following around a Trump supporter who's kind of one of these guys who like waves a bunch of flags, right? And so he is supposedly going to a rally of other Trump supporters, and Antifa has organized a counter rally. So he shows up at this rally, and there's no Trump supporters. There's no racists. There's no bad guys. It's all Antifa. So there's one guy at this thing that the media has been reporting there's going to be this rally. There's one dude there waving like 4 Trump flags and like 150 Antifa people attacking him, like physically attacking him. And if you've ever wanted to see an image that would make a left-wing person lose their minds, it's one guy waving a flag being beaten in the streets by a bunch of other people wearing black. It's the most like fascistic image you could ever see. And you got to give it to Callahan for showing that image, because it really is very powerful. And it's very like, because you're seeing the reality. You're seeing the reality that this whole thing, that there's a racist rally in Huntington Beach, or, when you see the obvious federal agents like marching with glasses on, they're trying to create this thing. But in reality, the Antifa people that's the real fascism. I mean, that's the real people who are beating others on the streets for having a different opinion in large groups, one guy. So those are the images we should have. Everybody should watch that movie. Pull images from there. Go, if you propagandists who have connections to the money people on the right, you want to make a patronage network here. Somebody asked me, what does a right-wing patronage network look like? Thank you, Robert Wisenfeld, for the super chat. Yeah, okay, and this other guy's saying, like, when they assault a horse. Yes, that is good. Share the fucking horse. That's what you want to share, man. Share the fucking horse, because that's the shit that people respond to. That's the shit that people fucking respond to, man. And, okay, yeah, again, if I'm talking to JD, go and find an image of an American walking down the street and being accosted by a bunch of people waving Mexican flags, by a bunch of these guys wearing these masks. If you're going to set something up, set that up. You set up the 2 boxes. Either we're the freedom fighter or we're the victim of authoritarianism. Those are the 2 images that the other side cannot fucking stand us using. Fear shit where it's like, oh, look at the scary bad guy and you're showing one guy. Nobody's afraid of the one guy. You got to show 20 guys. You got to show 20 guys beating up one guy. One of the most appalling videos I've ever seen in my entire life is when the black people in Rodney King pull the white guy out of his car and beat the shit out of him. I think they might kill him even. I don't know if they kill him, but they beat him up in the streets. And it is revolting. It is like, what many people felt was seeing George Floyd. Again, George Floyd created that same feeling in reverse, because it was a single guy being completely victimized by a team of police. That's so it had this certain look to it, even though it was bullshit. But it's all about the appearance. When I saw that video of that white guy during Rodney King, that made me sick to my stomach for like days and infuriated. I mean, that made me so furious. Just because it's like you're seeing a guy being beaten by a mob for what? For being white? For driving around in a truck for being white? I mean, that creates such a feeling of fury in people. And those are the images we need. That's what we need. We need people freeloading, beating people up who are just, going about their business. Murder Maid has an episode about Jonestown that starts with this long description, total non sequitur, which is very him, and where he's like crying 17 times, but or sounding like he's going to. But it starts with what happened in LA, recent history, or I guess it's not that recent if this was Jonestown. But what happened in LA is the Mexicans basically ethnically cleansed the blacks out of South Central. So South Central now is pretty much mostly Mexican. I mean, there's still some blacks around, but black gangsters basically killed huge amounts of black people to move them out of those territories. And now those territories are Mexican. So Mexicans have already effectively ethnically cleansed black people out of LA, or at least out of those parts of LA. So where's the images of that? You know, those are the images we need of these types of people. Okay. In any case, I think that's the end of what I have to say. Oh yeah, somebody says Reginald Denny, he did live but was permanently damaged. Yes, terrifying. Yeah, man, that video, dude, that made me like really like race war down, man, because that's just like, holy shit. But that's what I'm saying. The emotional power of images is to sum this all back up. The emotional power of images is what this is all about. It's all about tactics as theater. The power of symbolic acts. This is ChatGPT giving me Alinsky. The real action is the enemy's reaction. So if you are commenting on a piece of propaganda created by the other side, you are doing what Alinsky wants. Don't run their images on your lines. Do what Trump does. Trump is a master of this. Trump never runs an enemy campaign on his lines. He just responds with the most insane other insults. Somebody will come after him and he never goes, oh no, I'm not like that for this reason. He just calls them a name. That's what you do. You don't reshare their picture and like, oh, this is bad. You fucking make your own picture. Make your own picture. And, tactics must be employed as weapons for the purpose of establishing a scenario or impression. And when the impression, again, I think the Mexican flag was a little bit of an error by somebody or an intentional thing by our side, because that went a little too far in creating a confusing image for people, because they're like, well, wait, but is that a foreign flag? Like, that's a little too much, Like, what if it was a Chinese flag? Like, okay, it'd be one thing if it was just like some Mexican pride flag, but an actual nation of another flag, and you're not refusing to leave the country, that creates a little bit of uncertainty in the mind of the normie, right? But I do think most normies, when they see that Mexican flag, they don't think that's a country. They think that's an ethnicity. They think that's an ethnic flag. So I think that's what they're thinking. They're not thinking this is a foreign horde, which is what it is. But they're thinking it's just an ethnicity. It's just an ethnic flag. But then somebody smart enough on the left was like, oh, wait a second. That's like a little bit confusing. That's like a little bit too far. Okay, this is another super chat from Robert. Thank you so much. This says, imaging, memeing. Is there anywhere or where can a right-winger send money to help? Asking for a friend. Oh, man. Where can you send money to help generate images and propaganda from our side? Well, I think that probably shouldn't be too hard. There's the America Fund, America Legal Fund. It's actually a great fucking question. I have no fucking idea. Find out. Somebody find out what are the propaganda firms on our side, and which ones aren't bullshits? That's another good question. I have some in mind, but I also am afraid to say, because I don't want to I don't know what the rules are. I don't want to out anybody. So in any case, Google it. I don't know. Somebody find out. Somebody in the comments figure out where to send money if you want to create counter propaganda. You just send it to me. Send it to me. I'm doing it. I'm doing it now. Okay, just kidding. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good one.
It's more than just stealing gears. It pulls you in and doesn't let go.